Today, I have a story about blackmail. This story is absolutely crazy, and just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, oh boy, you guys are in for a treat. I sometimes wonder how people would go through such much problems just to have children. I, for one, know that children are problems, and so I'm glad I only have one. Just like every other parent, I had a child, a daughter who I greatly loved. I did everything responsible fathers should do. I provided for her and made sure that she never lacked anything good. But she repaid my kindness by being stubborn and reckless. She was angry at me for sending her mother out of my house. She refused to see me, or see my reasons why, but no man would tolerate a wife who goes out of the home sleeping with every male in the city. I did love my daughter's mother, but my love and money were not enough to satisfy her strong desires for sex, wealth, and, power. She caused me great pain that I knew it was best to divorce her, so I would be spared a painful heartache that could cut my life short. I gained custody of my daughter, but she was allowed to visit her mom, and I believed that was where she picked up her dirty behavior. She was intentional about doing things that angered me. Her mother was tried so hard to turn her against me, and she succeeded. No matter what I did for my daughter, she always resented me. I ignored her resentment and tried harder to make the relationship between us smoother. Things only got worse when I decided to get married to my second wife, Caroline. Even though I told her my plans to remarry and introduced her to my wife-to-be, my daughter, who was filled with anger, refused getting to know the lady who her father was about to marry. She ranted that she would rather die than call another woman her mother when her own mother was still alive and well. I did not pay attention to her. I saw it as childness and lack of understanding on her part, so I moved on with the marriage plan. It became clear to my fiancée Caroline from the first time she met my daughter that she would have a tough time in the home because of the attitude my daughter put up, but she hid the fact that she was hurt by my daughter's attitude just because she wanted to remain in favor with me. Otherwise, the marriage could be called off. After all, no responsible father would marry a wife whom he knew would make the life of his only child miserable. I was naive into believing that Caroline and I shared the same understanding, that my daughter was 15 years old at the time and was just being childish, and would grow up with time. But just accept reality, but I guess I was wrong. I never knew that my house was going to be a place of hatred and blackmail between my daughter and wife. My wedding day finally came, but my only daughter refused to be by my side. The embarrassment and disrespect was much because, most of the people present were my friends, and they knew I had a daughter whom I housed, fed, and trained in school. My daughter's absence from my wedding that day made me look like a weak man who was incapable of training his daughter or keeping his family in check. I was hurt, but I had to put on a facade so it did not look like I was getting forced to marry my bride. I regretted taking custody of my daughter. Had I known, I would have let her stay with her mother while I lived my life in peace. The only reason why I initially put up with her annoying mother-like character was because I did not want her desiring to move out of my life, but at that point, where she evaded my wedding, I could care less. I vowed to send her out of my life just like I did her mother, once she turned 18 years old with her mother's attitude. The experience I had with my daughter before getting married to my fiancé made me suggest to her that I was not willing to have another child with any other woman. My daughter was enough problems already. Caroline accepted the suggestion with an argument. She only requested that the only living family she had, who was her cousin Leo, who was 35 years old, move in with us for a few months till he had his financial problems sorted out. I had no issues with her request. I was a millionaire, and my house was large enough to accommodate the four of us. I was willing to accommodate him for the brief period that he would be staying with us, while helping him out with his financial issues since his sister was willing to sacrifice having a child to call her own, just for my comfort and peace of mind. Well, we got home after the wedding to find my daughter at the house watching movies. I was just newlywed, so I did not want to create a scene that could paint a negative impression to my wife Caroline and her brother Leo, so I simply ignored my daughter as though nothing ever happened. Even though I ignored my daughter's silly attitude, she still found ways of getting me upset. She used every opportunity that presented itself to pick up a fight with either Leo or my wife. My house was a hot zone. Not a day passed without a complaint coming to me either from my daughter stating how my wife or her brother Leo had offended her, or from my wife to me complaining about my daughter's latest act. I ignored the both women until one day, when I get back home from work and my wife has me a report I could not ignore. She walked in on my daughter and a boy frolicking in my house. I was mad. Her very act reminded me of her mother's life of betrayal. My daughter was following her mother's footsteps, except that she was actually worse. Amongst all the other things her mother did, she never brought a man into my house, but my daughter, who was not even 18 years old at the time, did it. I questioned my daughter, who did not bother denying the truth. She had initially pleaded with her stepmom to keep it from me because although she was reckless, she knew that I could be very mean when pushed to the edge. But my wife, who had been harboring anger for my daughter, hastily told me. It took me 3 days after the incidents to decide on what my daughter's punishment would be. Well, I grounded her indefinitely, took away her allowance and forbade her from entertaining any visitors, be it male or female. My daughter quietly stayed by herself in the days that followed, but I knew that she was boiling with anger towards my wife, who ratted her out to me. My daughter turned 18 years old before I could gradually start restoring her privileges. It seemed as though the denial of her monthly allowance from me finally knocked some sense into her and she put up her best behavior, even though she was still not friends with my wife or her brother Leo. 3 months after my daughter's birthday, I embarked on a business trip. It was a trip that was heard towards helping Leo, who claimed to be an engineer, secure a multi-million-dollar contract from the federal government. I was trying to financially set Leo up after he failed to do so for himself during the years that he lived with us. I went alone to discuss with the governor, who was in a different city. I would have gone with Leo, but he was suddenly down with the flu the morning that we were supposed to travel. I embarked on the journey, leaving my daughter, my wife, and her cousin. I returned home a few days later to discover that my wife no longer spoke ill of my daughter. As a matter of fact, she would defend her each time I wanted to scold her. Something was off, but I never knew what it was. Little did I know that while I was away, my daughter caught my wife Caroline sleeping with her cousin Leo. The very Leo whom my wife had introduced me as her only surviving family and kept in my house all these years was her lover. I housed and fed my wife's lover for years. My daughter, who caught them in the very act, kept it a secret from me. She rather used it as a means to blackmail her way into getting what she wanted from my wife. My wife had to play along to avoid my daughter telling me the truth of what's been going on. My daughter milked my wife dry by constantly taking extra cash from her. My daughter soon began making demands which my wife found offensive. She demanded that Leo sleeps with her, otherwise she would spill the beans of their secret. Caroline was mad and frustrated, but there was nothing she could do. She just had to share her lover with her stepdaughter. My daughter enjoyed her first session with Leo, who enjoyed the fact that he was having both ladies. Leo, he was a handsome guy who knew his way around women, and so my daughter regularly requested for him. Leo began moving about my home with an air of confidence and entitlement. I suspected something was going on behind my back, but I did not know what it was, so I hired a private investigator to follow up on the people living in my own home. It took a period of about 3 months before the investigator's report came back. I was shocked when he showed me the video evidence. Leo, sleeping with both my wife and daughter. Words failed to describe how I felt recounting the whole ordeal. It's still fresh in my head. I remember slumping on the chair and busting out in tears. A grown man like me. I felt a lot of things that I did not know how to express. I was ready to become a murderer, as that would be the only way that I could be pacified. Killing my wife and her cousin, of course, were the only things in my head, and I almost did that if not for the private investigator for whom I hired. He suggested that there could be more to my wife and her cousin than what we knew so far. He proposed that we ran a background check on them to ascertain their true identities, while still monitoring them from the shadows. I was not pleased with my investigator's suggestion, but looking back now, I realized it was the best line of action we could have taken, and I'm glad that we did it. The days that followed the discovery of the betrayal was more agonizing than anything I've ever faced in my life. I had to play the fool till the investigation into the true personality of my wife and Leo was over. I would smile when leaving the house. I would still keep my face smiling when I returned, as though I've not watched them have sex through the hidden cameras installed in my house. My daughter began falling in love with Leo over time, and she soon demanded that my wife Caroline let go of Leo so that she could have him all to herself. Caroline, who was already angry at the fact that she was sharing her lover with her stepdaughter, got further provoked that her stepdaughter wanted him all to herself. She then made plots to take my daughter out of the picture, as it seemed her lover Leo was complacent about the whole issue. It was 3 days to my birthday, and my investigator brought back the report of his findings. True to his suspicion, Caroline and Leo were in fact lovers who masquerade as cousins to prey on single men. Caroline, she was known to get married to rich men. It did not matter if they were rich or not. What mattered was the size of their pockets. She would coerce these men into letting her, quote, only surviving family who was having financial issues stay with him till he sorted out his issues. Together, they would milk the individual dry, and most times wreck the man's life before running away. They were wanted for various crimes such as murder and theft in various states, but the authorities had a hard time getting them as they went by various aliases. I equally discovered that a bounty of $2 million was actually placed on their head for whomever would have enough information that would lead to their arrest. The money, it never mattered to me. Making them pay for their deception and betrayal was what I had my eyes set on. Revenge. I threw a lavish birthday party for myself, and unknown to Caroline, Leo, and my daughter, I was just not celebrating my age. I was celebrating the end of their despicable union. My investigator and 3 police officers were present at the party, and somewhere along the line, I decided to play a documentary for everyone gathered to see about my journey through life. Everyone, including my wife, Leo, and daughter, expectantly sat waiting for my life documentary, but they were all shocked when the video of their escapades in my house began playing. The policeman made arrest of Leo and Caroline, but Leo somehow overpowered one and ran away. Caroline was taken away while a manhunt was put for Leo, and I dealt with my daughter in my own way. I sent her out of my house and out of my life for good. She was an adult, so she was legally fit to be on her own. She went to stay with her mother, who could barely sustain her, and so, after 3 months, she was at my doorstep pleading for mercy. I initially refused listening to her plea as I was still in pain from the shame that she'd brought upon me and my name. But after a few of my friends spoke to me, I saw reason with them and decided to give my daughter one final chance, as they suggested that my daughter was groomed by Leo as a minor, and so was not really to blame. I took my daughter in even though, on the inside, I knew that she was already corrupted by her mother long before Caroline and Leo came into the picture. It took a while for things to return to normalcy. I kept close watch on my daughter. I resolved never to be played like a fool for the second time. My daughter did her best to win my trust and attention once again, but just as every wise parent would do, I committed less into her hands. With time, though, her privileges were restored, as it seemed her attitude was changing for the better. At the time she was awaiting admittance into college, she became interested in my business and all my sources of wealth. There were times she would follow me to meetings just to see the way I ran my affairs. I was happy and proud that my irresponsible daughter had suddenly become responsible, and I became grateful that I did not disown her as I wanted to. My trust in her, it began to grow, so I took her and introduced her to my staff and some of the business colleagues as my successor. All things were going well till I began having failed assassination attempts on my life by some gunmen. These people seemed to know where I was going to be at a certain particular time. I involved the relevant authorities and tightened my security protocol. The next attempt on my life saw some of these men captured, and it turned out that they were sent by Leo and my daughter. It turned out that my daughter had secretly been seeing Leo. Most of the money she was receiving from me was given to him. Her seemingly, quote, good character was a ploy to get me to trust her so she could know about every business venture that I had. The plan was to execute me and enjoy my fortune with Leo. They were both arrested and prosecuted. I stood as a witness against my own daughter in court. She was sentenced to 10 years in prison, with Leo getting a life sentence. I was given the $2 million bounty placed on the heads of Leo and Caroline. I disowned my daughter and altered my will. The whole of my property will be given to charity once I die. I'm at peace with myself and with the way things turned out. Marriage and children are a no for me, and I won't wish them on anybody. The craziest part about this entire story, I thought finally OP's daughter has come around. She wants to change her life for the better, but I was fooled. Turns out she's still with that piece of crap, and they were trying to ultimately assassinate her father. Crazy people in this world, guys. Drop your thoughts down below about exactly how you would have handled the situation, and we'll look at the next story of the day. Entitled Mom Demands I Date Her Daughter Against My Own Will. So, when I was in elementary school before I moved, I was really good friends with a girl named Lara. For the story, she was easily my best friend. I ended up moving after 4th grade and lost contact with all my friends until 7th grade. I found Lara on Facebook, and me and her started talking immediately and catching up. I asked her if she wanted to hang out at a skate rink one night to catch up even more and just hang out like old times. She agreed, and we met up and talked a bit. Sometimes through the hangout, I started feeling really sick and canceled, apologized multiple times. I thought everything was well until Lara wasn't responding, so I decided to just let it go for now and get back home and relax. Later that night, I get a knock at my door and my mom comes in. She says, "Do you know why Lara's mom's so mad right now?" Well, I was confused, and my mom just laughed and started to read out what she sent to her. Lara is a complete mess. Your son asked her on a date only to cancel halfway through because he was, quote, feeling sick. She did not talk on the entire way home, then immediately locked herself in her room crying. How dare your son do this to my baby? I demand he sends her a full apology and starts dating her immediately. And he comes over with flowers and takes her to see a movie. I was so confused. I already told Lara that I did not want to date yet because I just got out of a relationship that was nothing but drama. My mom responded to her saying, "He says he doesn't want to date right now. He just wanted to hang out as friends." I'm not going to force him to do anything he doesn't want to. He already apologized to her while he was there and over text messages. OP has the issue with his stomach sometimes, and he can't control it and gives him a lot of pain. He still wants to hang out with Lara, but it might be a while since he has school, and he has practice this weekend. Entitled Mother responds, "I don't care. He'll be taking her out, and he will call her over the phone right now and apologize. I'll be setting up the dates from now on." My mom just laughed and said, "What a nut." I did end up calling Lara, apologizing to her, and explained my side, but brought up how I did not want to date yet. Wrong move. That's when I hear entitled mother say, "You selfish brat, you'll take my daughter out this weekend or I'll make your life a living hell." Well, my mom was right next to me when she said that and told me to give her the phone. She left and was gone for almost an hour. She came back and I still don't know what happened over the phone, but she said I don't have to worry about anything anymore. Well, I thought it was over. The next morning, I woke up to over 100 messages from Lara's family and Lara apologizing over and over. Apparently, after entitled mother and mom got off her phone, her mom went Omega mode, started calling family to pretty much bully me into dating her daughter, and to tell me how rude and disgusting I am for taking advantage of Lara. I told my mom and she took my phone, contacted entitled mother, and told me to wait in my room. About a half an hour later, she comes in and tells me to block everyone but Lara, which I do. And I tell Lara it's okay, I'm not mad at her, but I just need a break from talking to her. I did not talk to her for a while, and I never heard from entitled mother after that. Alright, let's check out this comment. Wow. OP, I can't imagine the drama you had to go through. Not that long ago, I blocked all contact with my ex because he was flirting with my cousin. But wow, that's just rude and disrespectful of your wishes. And you guys were in 7th. A relationship in that grade does not last long. I'll tell you that much. Hope you guys are getting along though as friends. This is when OP replied, "Sadly, we aren't really friends anymore, which is one of the main reasons I decided to post this. I'm sorry you went through that. Most people now are disrespectful to the people they date." Guys, let me know what you think about this story. Drop your thoughts down below. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next one.